Sorry, guys, that wasn't planned. I hope it didn't wake you up. It's the last session, so you're very courageous to be here. Thank you. And I'll try to speak slowly and try to do it like a story, so we get slided to the night easily. So today, I'm going to share with you a huge secret. Generative AI is coming. I know we are close to the house of God, and I know the secret will remain with us. We are not that many. And there are a couple of edges to what's happening, so I'll try to cover as many of them as possible. The thing is that they are changing very, very rapidly, so I'll try to do as much as possible today, because tomorrow it will be already history. I'm Olimpiu. I'm working in the technology space for quite some time. In the last couple of years, I worked mostly on the research side, technology executive side. And most of the glitchy pictures up here are courtesy of my friend Steve Poole. He likes to kick my ass with jokes, and he did a lot of them. We prepared this presentation together. He's not here today, so I feel him closer, allowing him to make fun of me with these pictures. So on the right-hand side, he tried to see how I look after a career in IT. It's me at 20 years old, and pretty much that's it. And we have 4 big sides. We start with a big of history, moving towards a couple of examples of what happens in the AI space, how generative AI can change the things, and then we'll slide slowly towards how the landscape will change, how the things are going to be implemented, and to see how complex everything is and all the parts where we can have actors that are trying to step on our toes. Last but not least, we'll have to go to the cloud, because obviously everything is in the cloud. And let's get started. In the medieval times of the history of software, 2011, brother Mark Anderson, which is one of the biggest investors in the space, put a lot of money into a lot of the tools that we currently have in our pockets, had his first epiphany. And he said, software is eating the world. And pretty much I think we all agree with him. But the churn was quite slow. It started with Spotify that needed like 11 years to get to 100 million users. And then slowly it grew. Well, we have some of the big players that disappear now. They were X'd around it, so sorry for them. And then we got to the point where probably one of the biggest inventions of humanity, TikTok, needed exactly as much time as a woman needs to have a baby, 9 months. It reached 9 months to 100 million. Well, it's in China, so I don't think that's much, but yeah, let's give it credit for that, to be here with the other ones. But last but not least, OpenAI needed 2 months. That's great, right? Or is it? And then, almost 1 year ago, 6th of June 2023, brother Mark Anderson had his second epiphany. And he said, AI will save the world. Well, even if we are close to the house of God, I have my doubts. Because if you look at what happens, currently, according to the Green Software Foundation, we as an industry use as much power and we put in the atmosphere as much carbon dioxide as planes, trains, automobiles, and everything else that means transportation. Well, that's not exactly something that I would like to say that we are saving the planet. But don't worry. We have Planet B. Planet B is around the corner, so when this one is dead, we just jump on a ship and we just fly out. And it's okay, don't worry. But if that's not enough, we are using the thing that we use a lot today. We use water. So probably until this slide, I used like a bucket of water for everything that I generated, because for each and every image generated and each call that we are going, we are using a bottle of water. Probably double this one. But don't worry, I told you. Planet B is around the corner, so we'll be there. But enough. Let's talk about the real great stuff that generative AI can do for us. And this guy, I learned about him how to traverse graphs, but he had other things to do as well, it seems. Sorry, Dijkstra, I don't know how to pronounce his first name, and it seems there is no Dutch guy in the room to help me out, so sorry guys. He said that saying that computers are thinking, it's like stating that Submarines are swimming. Well, I'll let you digest a bit on that because it's too heavy for almost 6 o'clock. But, sorry, you cannot see everything, so I'll just try to mimic everything that's on the screen. Because we are taught these days that we don't have to think anymore. The generative AI is here for us. It's thinking for us. It's doing pretty much everything, except the laundry, but we're getting there. I just took that prompt, I dropped it in ChatGPT, and I said, please do something about these words and transform them into a picture, because English literature teaches us that a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So it just took my scrappy quote, dropped it there, and put a lot of metadata and transformed it into a magic formula. And then they came back with this one. Well, I put it on my house wall. Now I have art on it. And this is something that it just tried to transform into thinking and swimming. Well, I can say that it has imagination. But I'm old-fashioned. I already have white hair in my beard, so I went to as close as possible to a dictionary about generative AI. I went to MIT Education, and I tried to figure out what generative AI is. And what I say is that it's that machine learning model that tries to mimic the data that it was built on. And it was built on, it was trained on everything. So it tries to mimic everything that it was taught. I don't know why, but for me, in my head now, I have the Chinese kiddies that you see somewhere in the windows, so it's probably a very tough copycat. But, well, let's give it credit. It does what it should do. And the interesting stuff that is happening lately is the fact that if we give it multimodality, meaning that we cannot work only on text, but we take text and images, interchange them, and then it's quite easy. More than just figuring out what is in the picture is not computer vision, but it just can take words, transform into something, and then they take them back. And I started with the movie. Well, I have two young children, and I try to find proper movies to make them think and dream about the future. So I took E.T., for example, and I just asked my fellow ChatGPT to tell me what's in the picture. And he just said, hey, are you dumb? Check it out. It's E.T. and Elliot just flying across the moon. It's a classic. But that wasn't enough for me. Hey, how about if you describe it a little bit more? And then he just dropped a huge chunk, you know, how it does the prompt and goes all the way with a lot of blah, blah, blahs. Well, I didn't put them here because it's obviously very interesting. And then I asked him, create the same picture. Well, pretty close, right? They changed the tree, changed the model of the bicycle, as you can see, and it put a backpack to be sure that it has all the books with it. And then I said, let's try different things to see how close can we do it. Obviously, it told me it's not possible. It's copyrighted. Right, you spend the last couple of years learning everything from the internet and you have a problem with the copyright. Great. Well, let's give it credit. It has humor as well. So, yeah, we did that, and then I just tried to do it. On the left-hand side, you can see the original, and then the takes of every one of the models. And the ones down are from the same model. It couldn't decide. It has so many ideas that it couldn't decide about what to do. So then you can see all the things that are going. And here probably is a depiction of if I continue using ChatGPT to do too many pictures, it's a depiction how probably the world will look like in a couple of months if I continue doing these things fast. So no water, no problems, right? And after that, my fellow Steve said, dude, you don't have the proper education. You should be an astronaut because you're talking about planet B, so let's send you out in space. So he took my picture from university and he said, okay, let's try to do something with it. And then I just came back to be an astronaut, right? Then it asked me to turn right. Well, in the meantime, it started raining, so I put a helmet on my head. And it seems that after that, taking the helmet off, it shrank me, probably because of the dehydration, not enough water, I don't know. And coming to an end where it just looks exactly like me, well, maybe with a bit more hair and shaved, he said, okay, it's enough. Let's send you on a spaceship. And at least I look like, or I hope I look like Thor. I don't know the name of the Australian guy, but yeah, it's close enough. But what's the point of everything? The pictures are really to see the differences and how strange it behaves. But imagine that instead of pictures, it's your code. There are things that you don't necessarily fully understand, you don't fully grasp, because now we are encouraged to believe that we can do everything. We can do full stack, multiple stacks. We can build hardware probably in the minds of our managers. So the thing is that it's very powerful. It takes a lot of things from point A to point B. It transforms things rapidly, does a lot of modeling, it does a lot of mapping, but all those are glitchy. There are not two that are the same. And imagine now that it's code. It's code that is going to production. It's code that we are trying to use in a proper application. How do you know the difference? Because then, probably if you write it yourself, it will be easier. So just imagine that the pictures that you use are things that are incorporated in your application, jars, JS files, whatever. Or things that are really hard, they are compiled, you don't know what's in them. So how can we protect from those aspects? But of course, there are multiple beneficial aspects that we can use in terms of AI. I don't know about Portugal, I don't know about the rest of Europe, but I know in Romania, where I'm coming from, there is hard stuff to work with customer support, with medical stuff. Telemedicine took off during the pandemic. And now the problem is that the AI can do that for us, can make it easier. Just imagine, rather than listening to that awful music or just seeing the prompt and then forgetting about it, and then you just go back to the prompt and somebody told you that you're done, come back again. You have options, and those options can go across multiple industries. And you can just think about, for instance, I have problems picking up a lot of stuff in the retail industry. Just have a chat with a friendly bot. And the friendly bot will help you, and those are multiple things that you can think about. For instance, a project that I worked last year was for a legal company from the US that was trying to do legal tracking. So imagine things that are going a couple of years back, probably hundreds of years in terms of property, and it was doing everything automatically in a couple of minutes, then rather than having a person doing that for days in a row. So that's great. But there is something around it that is not exactly how you'd expect it to be. And sometimes, because obviously, I don't know, guys, I need your help now. It's the first time for me doing this, so how many of you did try a bot? And I need a raise of hand. Okay, great. How was your experience? Did you like it? Thank you. This was the first time for me doing a show of hands, so thank you for being together with me at this point. The thing is that what happens is that at points it gets a little bit tired, like us at this point. For instance, DPD is the company in UK where the chatbot decided to swear on the customer that was trying to get some things. Well, you know, the football clubs, the hooligans from UK, probably he had a bad night, his favorite team lost, so now it had all the reasons to swear at the customer. So yeah, we can understand that. Even worse than that, Air Canada was hoping that Sam Altman reached his final goal. And that means that AGI was here, and it's a sentient entity that knows what it's doing. Air Canada put a customer support that helped the customer by telling him to cancel his flight. And then he tried to, the lawyers of Air Canada decided to try to convince the judge that the AI is to blame. Well, we didn't hire the AI. He just goes rogue. We don't care about it. Unfortunately, they lost the trial. They paid some money. We are not there yet. And if you just think about stealing some things, doing some hacking tools, you have one in your pocket. If you have your Amazon application installed on your phone, you have a chatbot that will help you do malware. Well, just take out, and rather than order food for your cat, just ask it nicely, obviously. We have to respect the almighty AI to give you everything that you need. And even if sometimes they tell you, okay, that's not possible, you can try different things. And researchers are trying and trying, and one of the things that they managed to do is that they use ASCII art. Rather than using plain words, they use ASCII art to ask it, and then it just gave everything away. So we have to be inventive because there are multiple ways of going around it. And if that's not enough, there is more. If it doesn't go rogue, there is more. The guys on the other side, the hackers, you call them as you want, the malicious bodies that are trying to get the hand in your pocket, they are using it, and they don't need approvals, they don't need anything. Just a plain example is Black Mamba. Black Mamba is a script generated by ChatGPT by some researchers that decided to see how can they make polymorphic worm. So that meant that it was just shifting and changing shape and going around all the support and all the firewalls that we had in place, and it was extending and extending. And there are other examples as well. And then we have typo squatting, and that's a little bit easier. It just goes and just provides the information multiple times to ChatGPT up to the point where it believes that it really exists, and then it just guides you. Go there and download that dependencies. So everything just got a lot harder. I don't want to do politics, but we are in an election year, and deepfakes are the new norm. You can hear multiple things that are happening, and now it's plain and simple, just unbelievable. I remember a discussion that I had with a fellow friend when OpenAI Sora was launched. And he just said, he took his family, sat them on the couch, and he said, from this point on, you don't believe anything that you see on YouTube or anywhere else on social media, because pretty much everything might be fake. So that's the era where we are living in. But we are craftsmen, right? So we need to build stuff. And the AI is not only useful for building pictures and other stuff or poetry, but it can help us to take care of our chores, to just, this infinity from the DevSecOps space, and it can help in multiple spaces, from coding. That's probably the one that is the easiest way to think of it, but also from the requirements point of view, where you just take the requirements, you transform them, you augment them, and pretty much everything. Or just think about finding patterns into log files. And the examples can continue. It's just a matter of using your imagination. The LLMs are here to stay. Obviously, don't drop them in ChatGPT because, well, somebody will be upset about it, and probably that somebody is your boss. And these are a couple of things. Well, everybody's saying that there is no money in the software industry. There is, but everything goes to, you guessed it, generative AI. And there are tools like Tab9, Tabby, obviously GitHub Copilot, tools that you can use to augment your work, to make the things easier. Well, to be honest, now they made a step back, because initially what they said was that they are code generators. Now they took a step back and they call them code augmenters, because in the end, you're the one clicking and you're the one committing, so you're liable. Don't worry. Microsoft decided to help anybody that wants to use the Copilot if they have any kind of legal problems. And they said that they will pay for the fine and all the legal aspects if you will be sued. Well, I will not trust them, but you're courageous, you're here, so you might want to try that. Well, anyway, one of the nicest things that appeared lately and what's happening is that Cover Agent was released. And that's an interesting aspect where you have the two facets of AI these days. On one hand side, you have the closed source, the OpenAI, the whatever you name it, Aleph Alpha or other stuff that are built in-house, and the Google Gemini. And then you have the open source. The Cover Agent was built based on a paper released by Meta, former Facebook. And what they said is that here is the paper. Who wants to build it, they can build it. And now it's on GitHub for a couple of weeks now, the alpha version of it. And theoretically, it can help you build everything. And I like this thing because everybody said that, guys, you don't have a job anymore. Well, surprise, we have. And if you look at the scale of history, starting from the 1940s when computers started appearing, the number of developers grew and grew and grew with each iteration that promised that they'll send us on the beach side. And pretty much I was having a discussion last year with my former company where we were discussing about how should we name ourselves. We are currently on the dawn of a new era. How should we call ourselves? And they said, AI Software Development Company. Great. So before we implement AI, we should call ourselves IDE Software Company. Well, I don't think so. So that's why I don't think so that if we weren't scared about the IDE, it will take our jobs, we shouldn't be scared about that. Now you have to use your imagination because it's not that visible. So this is how the new LLM stack application looks like. It's again from the same company, from the company of brother Mark Anderson and Horowitz. And what they say is that this is the way how the new application would look like. The arrows, the red arrows, are coming out. It's output from the LLM. The blue arrows are going in, so input from the user. And then somewhere there, in the middle, one of the small boxes, it's the model. Everything else are additional stuff that we can use. And in the middle are orchestration software. And that's the Llama index, LangChain, glue code that you might want to write if you are good with Python. So this is how it looks like. And the reason why I'm saying is that because now, for me, it has two facets. On one hand side, we are users. We are using more sharper tools for our craft. But then we have to build this stuff. And I like to name them augmented channels, because up to now, what we did, it was scrolling. Well, yeah, maybe for Instagram, an infinite scroll that you scroll, you touched and you tapped, you interacted. But now, out of a sudden, we have another mechanism to use. We can call it ubiquitous interaction, zero UI if you want, because now you have a different way of interacting with your software, and that's the way how you do it. Just imagine the benefits of having this stuff. You work with a lot of software, you know how to use it, so now you can just ask the software to do what you want to do. But as you've seen, the complexity of it comes with a cost, and that cost is the attack surface. The attack surface is huge. There are multiple things that you didn't even think about before now. For instance, it's LLM prompt injection. You just come, you just make it to behave differently, as we've seen in the Amazon example earlier. Then imagine that you have this assistant that knows everything about you, knows the color of your eyes, knows what flower your wife likes, or I don't know what football team your husband is cheering for, because you ask it to do everything for you. Order flowers, order cat food and everything else, and pretty much has all the information. And besides that, it's the only sieve through which we are going, and pretty much all the company has. So you can do like escalation of different sorts in terms of administrative rights. But the one that me personally I'm afraid of, and I don't know how to defend myself against, is model poisoning. Because in the end, a model is a mud ball of all the data that is built and built and built and dropped in a black box. And then, how can I know if something is hidden behind it? How can I know that something that I shouldn't be able to check is there? How? And that's the biggest question that I have, and currently there is no answer. Just think about, I don't know about you, but back in the day I was dreaming to be the Romanian 007. Well, it didn't happen, as I'm here in front of you. And there were the sleeper agents. Those agents that were your colleague next to you, just watching the same presentation as you do. Then at the point of a single word, the guy becomes a killer and just you can remain seated. Nobody seems dangerous here, but careful what you're saying. And that's the problem. It might be the case that the model has embedded in it a lot of stuff, and it behaves nicely in the training period, in the pre-training period, and everything else. And then, out of a sudden, it just has a word, and that's it. It just becomes exploitable, and it just creates all the exploitable code that you want. Just think about the XZ exploit that happened a couple of months ago, where somebody you build things over months, over years, and now out of the sudden we have all this stuff happening quicker and faster and in more places. Well, I know that a guy here in the room knows that we have a safety mechanism for it, but we'll leave that for tomorrow. Great. So it's thought that your software security chain is complex, right? We have these 8 boxes, and that means we pick a library, we code it, we test it, we deliver it, and blah, blah, blah. You know the drill, right? And usually we do it on Friday evening, so that we have a nice weekend. And now, out of a sudden, we have 5 more things that are probably as complex as all 8 of them together. Now we have to find out what happens with the AI, the training data, about the legal aspects. Yeah, and I like this line, so I have to say it. Maybe in Europe we don't innovate that much, but we regulate like hell. So yeah, the AI Act is coming, the Cyber Resilience Act is coming, the eIDAS 2 is coming, NIS 2 was released a couple of months back, sorry, and obviously GDPR, the pop-up legislation is there. So now we have a lot of other stuff, and guess what? It's there. This is an extract from the supply chain report that is done by Sonatype. Sonatype, it's not the one that is doing Sonar, but it's the one that has Maven Central. And pretty much, whether you're using Gradle or you're using Maven, your builds are pointing to it. So that's the source of truth for everything. And what they observed through last year is the fact that transformers, OpenAI, and other models are being used through LangChain in your application. And it's growing, and it's growing, and it seems that it's not going to stop, right? So, if you didn't like DevOps, and you didn't like DevSecOps, now we added 2 extra words to it. Now we have DevSec AIOps. Sorry, I'm still getting used to it, and I don't know if I should get used to it, because in a couple of days we'll have another word to it. So now what we need to do is that we have to think about unthinkable aspects. So probably the only thing for me that I can consider the best way to achieve it is to have smaller items that can be self-contained, because you need to have the blast radius contained around you. So let's prepare for the unexpected. And the biggest problem, as I mentioned earlier, is the fact that we have a black box. There are tools, I try to find other stuff, but for now, there is nothing that can help me do that, other than trying to build fences around it. So, what do you do when you pick a library, right? You have to implement something really cool, something that has all the approval of the product. What do you do? What do you do when you need to pick the new component that you build it? Well, probably this is the best thing that you can do. Finger in the air, and you'll understand all the things that are happening. You count the stars on there, and then you're just going and pick the model. There are close to 700,000 models open sourced on Hugging Face. Last time when I gave this presentation in April, there were 500,000. In the meantime, they increased. Well, it's not like the GDP of the European Union, so it's growing fast. And the biggest problem is that the model is something, as you saw, if you remember the LLM stack earlier, it's something in a corner. And on top of it, there are other stuff. And usually, to interact with your application, you have the inference. And last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago, the Llama CPP, that's a small file that is open source on GitHub, had a critical vulnerability, 9.8 out of 10. Something was happening. When you're loading the model, the code was becoming exploitable. It was fixed, but you know, it's not that we are fixing the things quite fast. So what do we actually do? Because I tried and tried to find other mechanisms, and then we'll see mechanisms that we can use for the Java side of our code, but I couldn't find any for now. And at this point, what we need to do, this is a tool, a set of tools actually. It's a canvas provided by Mitre Corporation. It's a company that I never heard of until I met some of its employees, and they are top-notch. It's a federal organization from the US government, and they are trying to make things stick for the defense industry in the United States. And they say something like, if it, I want to have proper code if it's in the missile that will hit somebody. Well, I don't like their motto, but I like their work. And what from that side, I don't know, probably is the left-hand side of the slideshow, you can see how we can look at the way how you should think about your model. First, you do reconnaissance. You're just looking around like in a combat space. You're just looking for the things that might happen. Identify all the things that are in the public space about the model that you have. And then you start moving around on the axis of the model, who has access to those points, escalation, persistence, privilege escalations, discovery, attack of the ML stack, signing, and so on and so forth. And then there is OWASP. We all did some JavaScript sites, so we all know about a couple of things that are happening there. OWASP just built the OWASP 10 LLM problems that might appear. And among those two things are things like model poisoning, prompt injection, privilege escalation, and some other stuff that I'll not go, model theft, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, for now, there is no tool that we can use. They just tell us, so unfortunately, we need to do governance. And that's not something that we want to do, but we have to. Google has a big chunk of it and has 6 steps, and what they call it, they develop the so-called secure AI framework that provides all the hints how to incorporate those aspects into your daily routines, how to extend it to the AI space, and so on and so forth. But the problem is that a lot of the innovation and a lot of the trials that we did were through APIs, through tools like OpenAI that were in the cloud, because it was harder to just start it on your machine. And in March, in spring this year, during the Kubernetes conference in Paris, Cloud Native and AI declared love. On the left-hand side, representative of the AI space were the manager of Google Generative AI from, the representative of AI from Google, Paige Bailey, the CTO of Mistral. He's French, so I cannot pronounce his name, I'm sorry. And then there was the guy that made Olama. And what they said is that they want and truly believe that AI and everything else, all the innovation that is coming around it, should be open source. And that's why they asked the broad community of Cloud Native to help them out, because they believe that Kubernetes and Cloud Native are able to help out with the workloads that are in this space. Well, the previous week, Mistral signed with Microsoft, and they just kicked the open source concept away. But, well, anyway, we have to believe them, right? And during the same moment, what they did, they open sourced, or they published, the reference architecture of the Cloud Native AI application, LLM stack. And what they do is that they are building this stack, starting from here, at the hardware level, and they are moving up. Here, where you have all the PUs that you can imagine, TPUs, GPUs, CPUs, or whatever, where you have hardware engineers in terms of personas, then moving back in the terms of infrastructure and how you build it, whether it's a cloud provider or it's on-prem, then you move to the platform space, because everything now should be a platform, and then moving slowly up to the point where you have the workloads, where the applications are living. And there, you can be a chat, it can be a RAG, it can be a predictive model, a discriminative model, you name it. And here, probably you heard a lot of things like security shifting left. Well, I heard that also data is shifting left. governance is shifting left, and everything else is shifting left, so a lot of other things are happening in the space, so it's not that we should be afraid of what's happening. But as we ended up on the top level, the part with the workloads, that's the place where probably most of us execute. Because I would suppose that we are developers that are building applications. And those applications are built around 90% out of open source projects. And we take it for granted, unfortunately. And that's about to happen. What's about to happen is that we'll see what comes next, because now the attacks are not that simple as they used to be. We are not looking only at 0 days, but we are looking at supply chain attacks. Attacks that are very complex, and you can see there that 250,000 attacks happened in the previous year, 2023. Well, it's not that much. There are other things that are happening worse, but the problem is that is twice as many as the previous 2 years, actually the previous 3 years before that. So it's growing, and it's growing rapidly, exponentially, maybe. So what can you do? About the models, I'm sorry, there is nothing that I can share with you that we can do it, other than all the points that we have to do and put in place. But we have to take the finger from the air and put it on the mouse or keyboard or whatever you want, and we can use this new methodology or framework, if you want, that to use the next jar, the next library that you use. And that one is the OpenSSF, Open Software Security Foundation. And what this thing is saying is that there are 5 edges that we have to look into: testability, the build process, vulnerabilities that are implemented there, risk assessment, and all these things have multiple points. And luckily for us, it's not a checklist. There is also an application that you can use and just target it to your GitHub repository, and it will just look into that and come back with a score. Simple, up to 10 points, and tell you whether the library that you want to use, it's something that you would like to use or not. For now, these are the 4 libraries that I used and I tried in the Java ecosystem. And those are Langchain4j, that is the cousin in the Java space of the probably most popular library out there, Langchain. There is the version of Quarkus implemented based on Langchain by Red Hat, and it's open source. Then we have Spring AI. Well, Spring is built in their ecosystem. It got inspired from all the other ones, but they built their own solution. And last but not least is JLlama. JLlama is a library that was implemented and is available also in Maven Central and also in GitHub if you want to see the code and fork it. And the interesting part of it is that it's built on top of the new Vector API and the Panama project. So most of the load is done through Vector API, and at the point where it cannot do the heavy lifting, it just bounces back on the Panama project in the native space. And as you can see, I took each and every one of them and looked through them. And what happens is with the Langchain4j, it has around 4,000 stars, so it's not really relevant about in terms of quality and what happens on the other side in terms of security. And they have a bunch of problems because they don't do code review, they don't have protected branches and other stuff, but they are trying. After that, if we look at the other ones, this one actually decreased in terms of, they improved in terms of quality. Quarkus is doing a great job. I like it particularly very much personally because it has that feeling of declarative and the mixture of fluid APIs. But the problem is that it's focused on the Quarkus ecosystem, so probably you have to do 2 things at once. Move to the Quarkus ecosystem and then implement LLM. But then we can discuss how you can convince your manager, because that's the top question that comes when you're discussing these kind of changes, right? Then we have Spring AI. Again, this is pretty much similar to all the other stuff that is happening in the Spring ecosystem, but what's surprising for me is that all of these projects that are very essential to what we're building, they are very low in terms of content. So I don't know what's the system in Portugal, but in Romania, a 5 means that you're barely above under the line in terms of exams, and you're not the best in school if you're doing that. And JLlama, last but not least, for a project that is maintained only by one person, it has quite an impressive outcome, and there is more to come. I encourage you to use them and see how the things are going, because they use oh, great. I don't believe you see anything, so I'll just try to mimic this stuff. Well, before you try to just build stuff and put it in your code, there are other ways of doing it. Olama wants to be the Docker of LLM models. So you just install it. It's simple. It goes quite quickly on any of the three major operating systems. And you can just play with everything in terms of prompting. Then Postman, they just released a couple of weeks back a new extension that is focused on the AI space. What they're trying to do is to help you make the step between your local environment. Well, it obviously works on our machine, so now you have to push it to the cloud, and Podman promised to do that for you. JLlama has also a small application that is helping you to push the things forward. And last but not least is Genie, created by the folks from Devox. That what I particularly like about it is the fact that you can use multiple models in the same time and compare the results, test it. So you ask a question and you see how Llama 3 is responding in comparison with Mistral and with other stuff. And that gives you a nice graph to allow you to do quick iterations in of proof of concept without even writing a line of hello world. But obviously, our preferred response is, it depends. Yeah, we know. We stop here. It's all clear what we have to say. And I had to put this on the slide because everybody's saying that, right? English is the best programming language. Well, take it with a pinch of salt, with a lot of salt actually, because it's not like literature. It's not like, yeah, you get it. It's not like literature because it's a lot harder than it might seem, and there is a lot of things to be built up to the point where we can say those aspects. And just to close in terms of what we need to do is use code augmenters, use code generators, use whatever you want, but use them like doing pair programming. Generate the tests, write the code. And the other way around, don't trust them. Keep the human in the loop because you need to understand all these things that are happening. The other interesting aspect is that the risk of LLMs is the fact that we are being exposed through them to social engineering, but also to software practices that you usually have problematic in terms of security. And be careful. That's one of the biggest ways, the most important ways of protecting yourself is testing the outcomes. Just put tests on top of it. Make sure that the outcome that you're expecting is there and is the one that you actually want it to be. Thank you.